and welcome to Ask a Virginia Woman. We are so excited to be here for our inaugural show. And this is the show where we talk about power and policy, leadership, and life with women who are moving the Commonwealth forward. Hi, I'm Judy Selzer. I'm co-founder of two sister organizations, the Virginia Women's Foundation and Virginia Women's Voices, and each week I'll be sitting down with bold, brilliant women from across Virginia and turning up the volume on conversations around leadership, equity, and courage, one woman's story at a time. So I'm really excited to have these conversations and ask incredible women, how did they get here? What challenges are they tackling? And what advice do they have for the rest of us? Because when the country and our state are facing big questions, sometimes the best thing to do is ask a Virginia woman. So today's guest on our inaugural Ask a Virginia Woman podcast is such a powerhouse. I am so honored to be here with Denise Harrington. She is dedicated to education and advocacy, and she is a woman who has spent her life breaking barriers, uplifting students, and fighting for equity in and out of the classroom. She is a lifelong, committed advocate for public education. She's taught music. She has empowered new English learners, and she has led truly transformative programs across Virginia. As a tireless advocate, she's lobbied at both the state and national levels and currently serves as the State Director of Advocacy for the League of Women Voters of Virginia, of which I'm a proud member. So I am so excited again to be here with you today, Denise, and excited to jump in and hear your leadership story. So let's get started. Tell us a bit about yourself and what has really propelled you over the years to continually try to lead forward to create change across the Commonwealth.
Well, Judith, thank you so much for that introduction. I hope I can just live up to your listeners and everything. Um, I'm like everybody else, a volunteer. And your question was, how did I get started or what are some of the things? I'm the youngest of six children. I originally grew up on Hampton University's campus when up until age 11. And then I moved to Albemarle County, Charlottesville. My father got a job with UVA. That's everything in Charlottesville. Wahoo wah for all the people listening. But I'm always a Hampton pirate. I graduated from Hampton University. So, because I came back home to Tidewater, I could say, or now they call it Hampton Roads. But so that what really got me, I guess, kind of started in advocacy. If you grew up, someone wants me to write a book, Growing Up 60s and 70s. In the 70s, we had the women's movement.
Yeah.
And for a younger generation, The Handmaid's Tale is my generation was the Stafford Wives.
Mm-hmm.
And so that was scary enough. But the message was loud and clear. I grew up with all these wonderful TV shows that socialized, women and cooking and being a housewife. There's nothing wrong with that if that's your choice. There's nothing wrong with that. But I grew up in the height of that glorious women's era of Gloria Steinem and all those wonderful folks, Shirley Chisholm, Barbara Jordan. Here are these ladies just trailblazers. And when you grow up and you're looking side by side, you're growing up in the Vietnam War, those issues. And as I say that, we had a neighbor on one side who went and another neighbor on the other side. And the summers I would go. You grow up having an awareness about issues in society. And when you are born, quote, during an era where you are an issue, it's called integration. And you see your oldest sister and oldest and only brother come back crying from school about an incident that happened, and you find out your own dad was on TV insisting this not so nice principal get fired, and that's what happened. But it didn't happen with just him being on TV. You had the entire Divine Nine organizations, the NAACP, the ACLU. You grew up and civil rights has just becomes a part of you and fighting and learning to advocate. And it's all about people power.
Yeah.
And women power too. That includes us too.
What a time to grow up in. And it's like it was just part of the air that you were breathing in, this need to fight for equity and to stand up for your rights. I mean, it just seems like it was baked into your upbringing, taking this courageous stand for equity. Tell us more about that.
Well, a good example is here I was telling somebody when we ratified the ERA in Virginia, the
Mm.
38th state, what have you, and I told someone something is wrong when you are 60 years old at that
Yeah.
time, whatever, 60, and you demonstrated at age 17 in Albemarle County. We had this, our high school had a little demonstration, if you will, Albemarle High School. That's the one on Hydraulic Road. I know there are several of them now. But, and we had a little demonstration about the Equal Rights Amendment. So it took us this long to get to the number of states, but I'm so glad Virginia did it. I will always hold true as a Virginian to our flag, Six Semper Tyrannis. I hope I said it right, Latin teachers. Thus always to tyrants. And it's time for women's voices to be heard.
Keeps you grounded knowing that sometimes you're repeating the same fights. You know, you're having to campaign again and again, educate again and again for equal rights for all, you know, across multiple decades. You were doing this as a young girl, you're doing it now as a seasoned professional advocate.
A
How do
nice
you
way of
stay
putting it, older
grounded?
lady.
How do you stay grounded through all of this and not get burnt out and just say, like, that's it, I'm done, it's never going to change?
Well, guess what? You know, there are always going to be folks. Every time our country takes two or three steps ahead,
Yeah.
and you always get these folks who wanted to go back.
Yeah.
And so what keeps me grounded is I feel like we're sort of living in a um, like a democracy at risk moment. There's no
Mm.
other way I can put that, and
Yeah.
it's not funny. It's not to be taken lightly. Uh, what I'm excited about, what keeps me grounded, is what I'm excited about. First of all, Virginia proposed three constitutional amendments.
Yes.
We are
Big victory this session.
no longer punishing people and keeping them permanently from not voting. So the right to vote after you, otherwise, if you've done your time and served, everything, you should have your rights restored automatically, like several other states are doing. And also the right to marry. It's about time that we think about our LGBTQ plus citizens. At the national level, yes. So the Supreme Court said yes. But if anything changes, we are protecting our LGBTQ plus folks here in Virginia. And then, of course, last but not least, we are going to finally enshrine reproductive health in our Constitution. Only tyrants, dictators, and all that kind of stuff should, think that they can tell people with what to do with their bodies, but not in a democracy. We are the birthplace of it here. Come on down to Williamsburg. Put my little plug in for this is our nation's first region here. And we just got tired of tyrants, and we're not going to take it anymore. And what keeps me grounded and rooted and happy and excited is that 11 states had ballot initiatives for women making their own decisions and not the state, so to speak. This is not a dystopian novel, and we are not going to turn our country into it. So that's what keeps me, it's the hope. And then righteous indignation,
Yeah.
seeing so many people now, for years, there have been pro-democracy organizations like the League and other areas, certainly the NAACP and civil rights, ACLU. We've had the Loving case, with them and so on. I mean, but we can't make this stuff up. And Virginians know when someone's trying to take us back, they are demonstrating in record numbers. There are people who are expressing this righteous indignation. But what happens is people are beginning to organize, and all of our wonderful organizers are out there. And that should translate into the voting piece.
Mm.
And so that's what excites me and keeps me grounded, that there are people who are still not giving up.
Yeah. Not giving up is so important, I think, to this continual conversation we're having as a country, as we're having as a Commonwealth here across Virginia, particularly in trying to build bridges during highly divisive times. So, how have you, in all of your work, maybe in particular your work with the League of Women Voters, it's a nonpartisan organization. And so, how do you go
Mhm.
about really building bridges across different political views, across different identities, different economic circumstances, different ethnicities. How do you go about building bridges and really find a way to see the world differently than others, but find common values? How has that worked, and how do you see it going well, or where are the hard spots of that? Because it feels like it's getting harder.
I'm so glad you asked that. In all of my advocacy work, even with the state's largest teachers association, that's the Virginia Education Association, when I was 20 something, gosh, hard to believe it's that long. But I started teaching at 23 too.
Yeah.
Um, but one of the things is I learned a long time ago, you have to have a set of core values just like, quote, the other side does. And you have to stop thinking of them as, quote, the other, because
Yeah.
ultimately they feel that what they're doing is best for Virginia, and you feel what you're doing is best for Virginia. So what you do is you build on that common thread. How can we work together? And once they understand that you really want to work with them, you don't have to necessarily compromise on your core principles. Sometimes you do have to accept people as they are, but not as you want them to be. But you also have to say, we can, let's sit down and let's talk. So the first thing you have to do is talk. The second thing you have to do is listen. What are they really saying when they're saying, well, I don't really think this is right or that, or I wanted that? And then you work from there. You work from common, because what happens is if you stay far apart, I'm trying to stay in the camera. If you stay far apart, and you don't like this, and it's a lot of people are saying you believe this and you believe that. Okay, but that's not what we really believe. What
Yeah.
we believe is this. You come closer. And what we really believe is this. So you have to use some active listening strategies, and you have to say, oh, so you said this, so what you really mean to say is X, Y, and Z. And then when you see that, and you can really work together, you're not going to agree on every single thing. You're not. But you can agree to work on the elements that you have common ground on. And you will find that common ground. You
Yeah.
will.
That common ground seems really key. And I imagine over the years you have just mentored so many different women in this work, in this space, to find their voice, to use their voice in the world around them, to deal with setbacks, but find their resiliency to learn from it and, jump back into the fray. What's your advice about how to find your voice, how to get engaged across whatever industry, whatever part of your life that matters to you? What advice do you have for others who are still struggling with this and trying to figure out how to have a voice even half as strong as the one you seem to just come so naturally to?
Well, first of all, always remember, I had an Eastern Indian woman say this to me, and she said, always remember your mother is your first teacher.
Mm-hmm.
And so I always thought about that. And as women, there are certain things we bring to the table with the intuition and with righteous indignation. And then you have to understand, when you mess with, here is what bothers me about
Yeah,
this, okay? If you and I see a lioness and we know better, or we're not going near your cubs, because if you do, you're going to chew us up. But when a woman sees something not going right for her own children, and she comes in with righteous indignation. Oh, well, something's wrong with her. Well, she's out of control, or she's this. So, first of all, you have to, have women accept there is a time for righteous indignation. You have a right to express your voice. Your voice should not be shut up or shut down or whatever. Because, if you do some of the basic work on yourself, so you have to figure out who you are, whether you
Yeah.
pray, whether you meditate, whether you chant, whether it's walking outside with nature, listen to your intuition voice on the inside. And there's a time, because we women, we just keep going. That business about a woman's work is never done. Is absolutely right. But a woman is best when she's at home with her own self. And then from there, my favorite statement, because I'm from an era where, well, you women shouldn't do this. So a woman's place is in the home. That is exactly right. As I reminded, I would have to be 28 or something, and someone said that to me because I was raising my son on my own. Your place is at home. And I said, I couldn't agree more. A woman's place is at home, in her own home PTA, or she's also at home when she's a board of supervisor or city council member, and when she's also at home in the House of Delegates and in the state Senate. And a woman's place is in home when she's serving her congressional district or she's serving as a senator. And a
Yes,
woman's at
I love
home when she's serving as governor of her home state.
it.
And a woman is at home when she's serving one day in the White House.
Yep.
And you have to remember that that's who we are. We are put on this planet to lead. We lead little people at first who are babies and so on. Sure, we have our husbands or partners with us, but we're there. We're our first teacher. So, that's what I remind women, that a woman's place is in the home, and all of the legislation and legislature that she can be in.
That is such an important message. Yeah, it's inspiring. And who are some of the other women leaders out there that are exciting you? Who is doing really, brave stuff, courageous stuff, just everyday stuff that you think is making the Commonwealth better and stronger?
Well, I mean, we have a very powerful, I have to give credit or a shout out to all these Virginia women. We've never seen so many women in our Virginia General Assembly.
Mm.
And so I'm very proud of them. And the same thing of the women who are in Congress who are raising the alarm about Medicaid and Medicare. Again, always serving something that serves the community, women. And then there are all these women who are leading these grassroots organizations. I always give a shout out to my president, Joan Port, because she's
Yes,
leading
it's
a
phenomenal
state
in the league.
organization. And we've been around a long time, but the women in the NAACP, there are women in Red, White, and Blue is mobilizing a lot of suburban women because their voices need to be heard because other people are trying to speak for them instead of listening to them. And there are a lot, I don't want to name it because I know I'm going to miss out on somebody, but all these grassroots organizations, and there's so many women in our Commonwealth that are doing a great job. I will say this. I thought I would never see the day that women were, controlling, if I can say, the purse strings. Here we have Vivian Watts, House Chair of Finance in the House. And here we have Senator Eloise Lucas in the Senate, head of the Senate Finance. I think Virginia, is ready. There's something about having that lady on the flag there and reminding us about things. So, and we do well when we manage our finances. We do very well in Virginia.
A woman that you'd love to see on this show as we pass the mic along to another important woman doing something every day in her life to make a difference? Who's another cool woman that we should ask for her ideas and her thoughts?
Oh my goodness, there are so many women. Um, I could think of if you're not going to do Joan Port in the league or whatever, but there's so many women. I could think of uh, let me just think. I could think of any of our congressional delegation
Yeah,
women. Jennifer McClellan, I could
yeah,
think of her. I could think of there's there's just so many other women in the General Assembly that I could think of. Any one of them, Jackie
yeah,
Glass, um, um, let's see, Vivian Watts, or who is it?
yeah.
Yeah,
These are all
anyone.
great leaders who have such
Tandy
wonderful
King,
wisdom.
a lot of these women have been fighting and advocating for basic contraception. I mean, I never thought I would see that, but again, we're women and nothing should shock us, and we are always up to the task. But they're grassroots organizations that I'm kind of thinking of some of these other grassroots organizations that are out here. But I did think of Jamie Lockhart with Planned Parenthood.
Yes,
I did think of Torina. I keep forgetting her last name with
yes.
Repo Rising and all of that. And there's so many people involved. And some of our, I was thinking of a couple of people who work with us in the Fund Our Schools Coalition, the largest coalition of parents and children and public advocates. She's the president of the NAACP, I think for Henrico, Monica
Mm,
Hutchinson, and then
wonderful.
there's Voices for Virginia's Children, and there's so many good grassroots organizations that are serving our communities.
And Denise, you've been engaged in so many of these different fights for equity, for access to education, access to healthcare, access to voting rights. Where do you see some of the biggest questions that we still have as a Commonwealth about where we go in the future? And where are some of the places again where you're seeing forward movement despite all of the disagreements? These are the big questions keeping you up at night, but here's where you see some positive change moving forward.
Thank you.
Yeah.
As I indicated before, the righteous indignation and the organizing and the movement. I mean, people are going to do something. We do not know what they're going to do, but I hate to quote the 60s, power to the people.
Hmm.
And then, Frederick Douglass is kind of like, gee, power concedes nothing without demand. And I think this is what's resonating with people. It is unfortunate, though. You asked me areas where I see us going back. And I have to say this. Here is what disgusts me to the nth degree. And I'm going to be completely honest.
Yeah.
As someone who folks didn't even want to get a education during that nasty business we call segregation, and then I don't know if people realize. I'll just tell you a little bit about my own family. In that we were separated. I was just talking to my oldest sister, who's 10 years older than me, so she was born in 1952, and she said, "Well, I went to the segregated schools in Aberdeen and Hampton, and then I went here, and then I went there, and then finally we ended up, at Hampton University, and we ended up here, and um, I could not even attend public education until I was 8 going on 9, going into the third grade, or 7 going on 8, because I was a little early birthday. And so I couldn't even attend public education until then. My parents didn't even deem it safe. They were not going to have a Ruby Bridges.
Yeah.
And so one sister stayed with my great grandmother and grandmother in the Cloverdale section of Chesapeake. That's Delegate Askew's area. He reminded me when I saw her once. And she stayed there till 9 years old, till fourth grade, and then didn't come home to Hampton with us until fifth grade. And we were in John and Willis for a year, and then they moved us to Phoebus Elementary. So that's where I finished my education. But what is this? Why is this important? So those same people who chanted 2468, we ain't going to integrate, are now reverse parties, are now saying, well, let's do vouchers, let's do tuition tax credits. And I really want to, this is what gets under my skin, what keeps me up at night. So you mean to tell me what Dixiecrats could not achieve in this state or around the country. There are people who are now advocating vouchers, and we have secret words for that now. We call it an education savings account. Mm-hmm. We're not talking about the 529, that's college, or now they've extended it to professional development, skill-based. We're not talking about that. We're talking about diverting funds from public schools directly, that's called a voucher, and then diverting funds from public schools indirectly, that's called a tuition tax credit, a so-called tax savings account, a so-called, and guess what? All the statistics say it resegregates schools.
Yeah.
Why in the world would we want to do that when we have the Title I program that says, come one and come all? Private schools pick and choose their children. And I have to share this to your audience, because what keeps me up at night is they're redressing the same thing, but it's the same old thing. And what is disgusting to me is still resegregate schools, and they're changing the name, and good people think, well, maybe I should do this. And they're good people. But once their child, that $5,000 goes across town to the whoop-de-doo private school. And by the way, if I have my child in a $25,000 school, okay, I could get $5,000 to keep them there. And so what it happens, it creates an educational system that robs from the needy and gives to the greedy. And this keeps me up at night. This isn't that movie with Michael Douglas where greed is good.
Yeah.
This is a destroying one of the most fully integrated institutions in our society is our public schools. Are we perfect? Absolutely not. Families are different, children are changing, and we're adjusting and growing. But you don't throw out the baby with the bathwater and say, here's a voucher. So again, they resegregate schools, and by the way, there's no accountability, because right now you have to vote for your school board. If you don't like them, you vote them out. If you like them, you vote them in and keep them in. But you don't do that. You don't do that with them. What happens is it's some board, and they can say and do whatever they want to do, and they're not held accountable to the communities they serve. This is a bad idea. It's a dumb idea. We should know better, because it came,
follow this and find out more about it and get involved. If folks across Virginia want to educate themselves about these issues, about what's going on with public schools and this new dressed up version of segregation again, how do we educate ourselves and try to make a difference in something that seems incredibly complicated?
Thank you. I'm glad you asked that question. Go to fundourschools.org. I might say fundourschoolsvirginia.org. Go to there. There are many statistics. There are websites that you can go to where people, and then I found out in some states, they even have an amendment enshrined in their state constitution that says we're not taking public funds and using them for private use. Simple as that, whether it's sectarian or whether it's any other type of private school. And then there's certain laws. You used to be able to go to the Department of Education. I don't know if we're even going to have one.
Yeah.
So there used to be, you could go there, but I recommend for Virginians to go to Fund Our Schools, Virginia, or it might say va.org. There you will find, because the PTA is there, you have other parent-led grassroots organizations. You have VA grassroots teachers. You have the number 4, public education. These are all being run by just volunteers, not big organizations, retired teachers. And you have the Retired Teachers Association and the Virginia Education Association too. So you have all of these. You can get statistics and numbers, and you can find out how detrimental this is to destroy children and parents in public education too, really.
Well, thank you, Denise. This has been so inspiring and so educational. You are just such a a deeply committed person to not only public education, but reproductive health care and voting rights and just justice for all of us, just the ability for us all to live and lead in a thriving way. And I appreciate your commitment to community service. We have really been gifted with so much wisdom today from you. And I look forward
Is
to
that wisdom?
continuing to work alongside you and volunteering to figure out how to continue to make the Commonwealth a place we can all be really excited and proud to live. So thanks for all
I
you're
love
doing, Denise.
Virginia. Thank
Absolutely.
you. Thank you
Well,
so much. Thank you for having me.
I appreciate it. Well, that's it for this episode of Ask a Virginia Woman. If you enjoyed today's conversation, don't forget to subscribe and leave us a review. And of course, share it with someone who you think needs to hear this. Great message from Denise. As we continue to interview guests each week, we'll be asking these big questions, and we invite you to keep listening and reflecting and engaging in what matters most to you. And we do hope that this show and our guests inspire you to believe in your own leadership and to help you connect with other women who, like you, are leading us forward across Virginia, because leadership is really about showing up and sharing your story and listening and learning from others. And we together can shape our future. So, here on Ask a Virginia Woman, we'll keep spotlighting stories from amazing women that move us towards a more inclusive and resilient world. And if you want more stories like Denise's, go ahead and follow us on social media at VA Women, or visit our websites, vawomen.org or vawomenvoices.org, to get involved, suggest a guest, and support the show. And so until next time, stay bold, stay curious, and remember, when in doubt, you should just ask a Virginia woman.
Thank you.